Madam Speaker, it is, of course, the evening where we vote on the estimates, and they are estimates, in fact, because we really never know how much this government is going to spend, so we really only can estimate. And today proves to be no different. But this is, of course, the result of two things. Well, first of all, it's complete out-of-control spending by this government. We've seen it since 2015, but of course it has increased rapidly since 2020, and now it is just completely out of control. And the second thing, Madam Speaker, as a result of this out-of-control spending, this government makes Canadians pay for their incompetence and their moral disregard time and time again. And this has three negative effects on the nation. It taxes generational wealth, it taxes the middle class, and it destroys productivity. Let's take a quick look at the numbers, Madam Speaker, to justify what I'm saying. We have a current deficit of $39.8 billion. In the beginning, I used to have to double-check myself if I was supposed to be saying million. Now I feel very confident in saying billion, because it is, in fact, $39.8 billion. New spending of $52.9 billion. This is a huge number, Madam Speaker. Debt servicing costs of $54.1 billion. And additional debt servicing costs, again a surprise I raised in Government Operations Committee to the President of the Treasury Board, of $1.9 billion. You know, I think I would notice an anomaly like this on my credit card were it the case. And in fact, it was reported here in the Globe and Mail, an article I have, that the government does not have a revenue problem. Annual federal revenue is increasing and has grown nominally more than $185 billion, or 66.2%, from 2014-15 to 2023-24. Before tabling the budget in April, the government was already anticipating annual revenue to increase by more than $27 billion this year. But the government has chosen to spend every dime it takes in, and then some, instead of being disciplined. Years of unrestrained spending and borrowing have led to a precarious fiscal situation in Ottawa. This government largely chose to continue spending, and clearly raising taxes to generate revenue was unnecessary and could have been avoided with more disciplined spending, so not necessary. Now, Madam Speaker, next I'd like to provide some examples of this wasteful spending. $169.5 million sole-sourced contract for ventilators purchased at $220,000 each, and now have been sold $6 a piece for scrap. That's the first example, Madam Speaker. The second example is Parks Canada spending $12 million on culling deer in British Columbia, a job my caucus colleagues say Canadian hunters would have done for free. And the Auditor General, Madam Speaker, identified at least $32 billion in overpayments and suspicious payments by ESDC. Not a surprise at all by this government. In March, Madam Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, someone that this government likes to gag, released a report warning that the Prime Minister's government spending plans remained out of control. The amount that taxpayers spend just to service the national debt is expected to go up 33.4% in 2024 and 11.6% in 2025. That means the amount we pay just to cover the interest on the national debt will rise from $35 billion to $46.7 billion in 2024 and $52.1 billion in 2025. It's important to put those figures in perspective because those debt payments offer no services and rob precious dollars from services that this government likes to brag about. The debt payments will double what we will spend on the military, Madam Speaker. So certainly, when I make these references to these amounts, they are not small amounts that I am referring to. Now, Madam Speaker, I'll turn to the second part, the pain that this government inflicts upon its citizens in an effort to compensate for its spending problem out of incompetence and a lack of moral guiding. The capital gains tax will actually affect 4.74 million investors in different Canadian companies. This also means, as I said, regarding the productivity, that potential entrepreneurs or investors are more likely to take their ideas and their money elsewhere, and Canadians will continue to suffer the consequences of a stagnating economy. The carbon tax, Madam Speaker, just this week, Canadians discovered that for years the Prime Minister has been hiding the fact that the carbon tax will cost Canadians $30.5 billion by 2030, and that this works out to $1,824 per family in extra annual costs. In addition, Madam Speaker, we had the economist Jack Mintz, who estimated 1.25 million individuals, not just 44,000, will make a capital gain greater than 250,000 at some time in their tax-paying life. Not just this year alone. Many of these people will have relatively modest incomes and only earn extraordinary capital gains at retirement or death. And the official opposition shares these stories every day during question period and in our interventions in the House of Commons. Madam Speaker, how many Canadian investors would be affected by higher capital gains taxes at both the personal and corporate level? In 2021, 4.74 million tax filers, 15.7%. Of those, 69%, 3.29 million, had incomes below $100,000. The middle class, Madam Speaker. The increase in corporate capital gains is going to hurt many Canadian investors with middle class or modest incomes. As I come to the last 30 seconds of my speech, I would just like to reiterate what I said at the beginning. This government has a spending problem. It is a significant spending problem that is evident by the numbers that I've put here today. And what do? They don't responsibly address it through lowering their spending, not having unethical overspending like we see with the RiveScan and the Green Slush Fund. Rather, what they do is they enforce this on Canadians. They make them pay for their incompetence, their moral disregard through tools like the carbon tax and the capital gains tax. This has to stop, Madam Speaker. Tonight in the estimates, though, we're not going to.
Questions and comments.